The 1970 Dodge Charger was more than just a Corvette, was a powerful symbol of American muscle and raw performance. With its aggressive styling, roaring V8 engines, and dominating road presence, it quickly became a dream machine for young drivers during the golden age of muscle cars. But behind its fame and Hollywood image lay a darker reality of dangerous street racing. Increasing crash rates, rising fuel costs, and growing government pressure that threatened the entire muscle car era. The Charger became so powerful and uncontrollable that it reflected a turning point in automotive history, where America began to turn against its own creation. By 1970, the competition between American car companies had become an all-out horsepower war. Every brand wanted to dominate the streets, drag strips, and NASCAR tracks. Dodge knew that simply building a fast car wasn't enough anymore. They needed a machine that looked intimidating, sounded violent, and could outperform almost anything on the road. That vision gave birth to one of the most legendary muscle cars ever created, the Dodge Charger. The 1970 model pushed the Charger's design to another level. Its aggressive front grille, wide stance, and muscular curves made it look more like a predator than a car. Even standing still, the Charger looked fast. And under the hood, it truly was. Dodge offered several engine options, but the most feared was the massive 426 HEMI V8, an engine that became a symbol of raw American performance. With brutal acceleration and a thunder-like exhaust note, the Charger quickly earned a reputation as a street king. But the Charger's fame wasn't limited to regular roads. Dodge heavily promoted the car through motorsports, especially NASCAR, where speed and power mattered more than comfort or fuel economy. Winning races helped turn the Charger into a national icon almost overnight. Young drivers across America dreamed of owning one, and for many people, the Charger represented rebellion, freedom, and pure adrenaline. At the same time, muscle car culture itself was becoming more extreme. Bigger engines, louder exhausts, and faster quarter-mile times became the only things that mattered. Manufacturers kept pushing limits because the public demanded more power every single year. But while the Charger was becoming a legend, very few people realized that this obsession with speed was quietly creating a disaster that would soon change the entire auto industry forever. As the 1970 Dodge Charger grew more popular, something dangerous started happening across America. Muscle cars were no longer just weekend toys or race machines, they were becoming symbols of reckless speed. Young drivers pushed these powerful cars far beyond their limits, and street racing culture exploded in cities all over the country. Late at night, highways became unofficial racetracks, and the Charger was often at the center of it all. The problem was simple. These cars had enormous power, but safety technology at the time was still primitive. The Charger's massive V8 engines could produce terrifying acceleration. Yet the brakes, tires, and handling systems struggled to keep up. Drivers with little experience suddenly had access to machines capable of extreme speeds, and accidents began happening more frequently. Newspapers started reporting deadly crashes involving muscle cars, and insurance companies took notice almost immediately. Soon, the Dodge Charger developed a darker reputation. To many Americans, it was no longer just an exciting performance car. It had become a dangerous symbol of reckless driving and uncontrollable horsepower. Insurance rates for high-performance vehicles skyrocketed, especially for young men who were considered the highest-risk drivers. In some cases, insurance costs became more expensive than the actual car payments themselves. As the 1970s began, the world that created the Dodge Charger started to disappear. The same qualities that once made it a legend, huge engines, extreme horsepower, and heavy fuel consumption, were now becoming its biggest weaknesses. The oil crisis hit hard, and suddenly, American drivers were no longer looking for power. They were looking for efficiency. Gas prices rose rapidly, and fuel shortages meant people had to wait in long lines just to fill their tanks. A car like the Charger, which drank fuel aggressively, became expensive to own and difficult to justify. Families who once dreamed of muscle cars now preferred smaller, more economical vehicles. This shift hit Dodge and other American manufacturers extremely hard. At the same time, the government introduced stricter emission regulations. These new rules forced car companies to reduce engine power and redesign their performance systems. For the Charger, this meant its legendary V8 engines began losing their raw strength. Compression ratios were lowered, horsepower numbers dropped, and the aggressive character that defined the muscle car era started fading away. Insurance companies also continued raising premiums, especially for high-performance vehicles. Young buyers, who were the core audience for the Charger, could no longer afford both the car and the insurance. This caused demand to drop even further. Dealers who once struggled to keep Chargers in stock now found them sitting unsold on showroom floors. By the mid-1970s, the muscle car era had effectively collapsed. The Dodge Charger itself survived in name, but it was no longer the same machine that once ruled the streets. The raw, untamed power that defined the 1970 model had been softened, restricted, and controlled by new laws and economic pressure. What was once an icon of freedom was now becoming a reminder of a past America could no longer afford. Even as the muscle car era faded in real life, the Dodge Charger refused to disappear from people's imagination. Hollywood and pop culture kept its legacy alive, turning it into something even bigger than before. The Charger became a symbol of attitude, rebellion, and unstoppable power on screen, even when the streets had moved on. One of the biggest reasons for its modern fame is its repeated appearance in movies and television, especially in high-speed chase scenes where the Charger's aggressive design and roaring engine perfectly match chaos and intensity. Over time, it stopped being just a car and became a cinematic icon. Directors used it to represent strength, danger, and dominance in a single frame. One of the biggest reasons for its modern fame is its repeated appearance in movies and television, especially in high-speed chase scenes where the Charger's aggressive design and roaring engine perfectly match chaos and intensity. Over time, it stopped being just a car and became a cinematic icon. Directors used it to represent strength, danger, and dominance in a single frame. In recent years, the Charger experienced a massive revival thanks to modern action franchises. A new generation of fans discovered the car through blockbuster films, where it was shown not as a relic of the past, but as a living legend reborn. Its image was rebuilt from a dangerous muscle car into a hero machine that could survive impossible situations. In recent years, the Charger experienced a massive revival thanks to modern action franchises. A new generation of fans discovered the car through blockbuster films, where it was shown not as a relic of the past, but as a living legend reborn. Its image was rebuilt from a dangerous muscle car into a hero machine that could survive impossible situations. Car enthusiasts and collectors also played a huge role in restoring its reputation. Restored models of the 1970 Charger began appearing at car shows, auctions, and private collections, often selling for extremely high prices. What was once considered a risky, fuel-hungry machine had now become a valuable piece of automotive history. Through Hollywood, nostalgia, and collector culture, the Charger didn't just survive its downfall. It transformed into a timeless icon that represents the golden age of American muscle cars. Even after decades have passed, the 1970 Dodge Charger still holds a special place in the hearts of car enthusiasts around the world. Modern cars may be faster, safer, and more efficient, but they often lack the raw emotion that defined the muscle car era. The Charger represents something that today's automotive world rarely delivers: pure, unfiltered driving excitement. One of the biggest reasons people still admire the Charger is its design. The long, aggressive body, hidden headlights, and wide stance give it a presence that feels powerful even when it's parked. It doesn't try to look modern or futuristic. Instead, it looks timeless, as if it was built to intimidate everything around it. Then, there's the sound. The deep roar of a big block V8 engine is something that cannot be replicated by modern turbocharged engines or electric motors. For many enthusiasts, the Charger's exhaust note is not just noise, it's emotion, history, and power combined into one experience. Collectors also value the Charger because of its rarity and historical importance. Surviving original models from the 1970 era are highly sought after, often reaching impressive prices at auctions. Owning one is not just about having a car. It's about owning a piece of American automotive history that represents a time when performance mattered more than regulations. In a world of smart technology and silent engines, the 1970 Charger stands as a reminder of a wilder, louder, and more rebellious time. That is exactly why, even today, it continues to be worshipped by car lovers across generations. The 1970 Dodge Charger was never just about speed or power. It represented an era defined by freedom, emotion, and bold American engineering. However, the same strength that made it legendary also led to its decline as rising fuel prices, Strict regulations and safety concerns ended the muscle car golden age. Still, its legacy lived on through films, culture, and passionate collectors. Today, it remains a symbol of a time when cars were loud, raw, and full of character. It also leaves us wondering what extreme machines might have followed if that era had continued.